Hello everyone! In the Champions League, after another match week, Sporting, Monaco and Brest unexpectedly found themselves in the top 4, while PSG dropped to the relegation zone. So far, the new format is looking very intriguing. In England, Arsenal have been unable to win for the 2000th time in the top division. This time they were stopped by Chelsea. Man United, which revived after Ten Hag's dismissal, continued to pick up points and ultimately went unbeaten in 4 games under Van Nistelrooy. In Spain, Barca ended a 7-game winning streak without a shot on target for the first time in La Liga in 10 years. Lunin assisted Vinicius in the game against Osasuna, after which De Gea did the same in Italy for his team Fiorentina. There in Serie A, Roma bosses said goodbye to Ivan Juric after another loss of their team. In Germany, Bayer Leverkusen missed out on the win, conceding a late goal and dropped to 4th place in the Bundesliga. And before that, they had lost to Liverpool in the Champions League. Now let's choose the best 11. Mike Maignan will take the place in goal today for an impressive game against Real Madrid. If it weren't for the Frenchman, Milan would definitely not have won. The Rossoneri goalkeeper made 9 saves, some of which were simply crazy, and ultimately became the MVP. Let's give the left side of the defense to Berat Cimciti from Atalanta. Against Stuttgart, the Albanian played as a right center-back, but after Kolasinac's injury at the beginning of the game, he moved to the position of left-back and concreted his sideline. He made 9 successful defensive actions, and most importantly, he cleared the ball from the goal line when the score was 1-0. Another Serie A player, Gabriele Zappa from Cagliari, will play on the right. At the beginning of the second half, he converted his one-on-one rendezvous with the goalkeeper into a goal, and when the opponent took the lead again, Zappa ran into penalty area at the end and scored his second goal, bringing his team a tie in the game against Milan. It's interesting, by the way, that 3 Cagliari defenders with effective actions were included in the final protocol of the game. Thilo Kehrer from Monaco will definitely start in the center. In the Champions League, the German scored the winning goal in the 86th minute and played flawlessly in defense. And in Ligue 1, in the game against Strasbourg, he played reliably at the back as well, not letting anyone dribble past him. It's unexpected that at 28 years old, Kehrer is experiencing a career renaissance, because a few seasons ago it seemed that we had lost Thilo as a top player because of injuries. Next to him, we will play Denis Vavrov from Wolfsburg. In the game against Heidenheim, the Wolves had to defend a lot and managed to win, and the Slovak international had an incredible defensive performance. Denis made as many as 15 clearances and won 9 out of 10 aerial duels against his opponents. Not only that, after all, he could have scored 2, but hit on the post instead. In the center of midfield, let's start with Bruno Fernandes. In the Europa League game against PAOK, he provided an assist for the winning goal scored by Diallo. In the Premier League game against Leicester, the Portuguese player scored a goal and provided an assist, saying goodbye to Van Nistelrooy in a beautiful way. It's genuinely heartwarming to see how the atmosphere at Manchester United has changed under Ruud. Even the perpetually serious Fernandes now often smiles. It is something we haven't seen in a long time. Maybe the appointment of Amorim was rushed, huh? Should Ruud have been given a chance, Man United fans? Bruno's midfield teammate will be Malik Tillman from PSV for his outstanding performance against Girona. The American played a direct role in 3 out of PSV's 4 goals, scoring once and assisting twice. He also contributed defensively with 4 tackles, created opportunities with 6 key passes, and earned 2 fouls for his team. Tillman excelled in all phases of the game, earning a well-deserved spot in the Champions League Team of the Week. Next up, we have the attack, starting on the left with, finally, Rafael Leao. In the game against Real Madrid, the Portuguese forward showcased his best qualities: dribbling, ball progression, and creating chances for his teammates, dominating his flank and giving Lucas Vazquez a tough time. Then, against Cagliari, Rafael turned on his goal-scoring mode, netting a brace that, unfortunately, wasn't enough to secure a victory for his team. On the right flank, we have Mohamed Salah. Over 2 games this week, he was involved in 4 of Liverpool's goals, becoming the first player from the top 5 European leagues this season to score more than 10 goals and provide more than 10 assists. First, Salah tormented Bayer Leverkusen in the Europa League, delivering 2 precise crosses that allowed Gakpo and Diaz to score. Then, against Aston Villa in the Premier League, he provided an assist for Darwin Núñez and scored a goal himself. In my opinion, with Salah's current form and Liverpool's excellent results, he's a leading contender for the Ballon d'Or this year. The role of the deep-lying forward goes to another player under Arne Slot's guidance, Luis Diaz. Following his hat-trick against Bayer Leverkusen, it's impossible to leave the Colombian out of the starting lineup. Diaz demonstrated excellent finishing inside the box, particularly with his first goal, where he elegantly chipped the ball over the keeper. For the striker position, we obviously choose Viktor Gyokeres. The Swedish star dismantled Manchester City. He did his job brilliantly, scoring a hat-trick and earning the title of Champions League Player of the Week. Here is the final squad with which we can play in a 4-2-3-1, 4-2-1-3 or even 4-2-4 formation. There are plenty of tactical options. At first glance, the lineup might seem overly attacking, but on closer inspection, it's more balanced than it appears. We have a high-pressing forward line where everyone works hard off the ball, except perhaps Leao, but he makes up for it in creativity. In midfield, both Bruno and especially Tillman are capable of defending effectively. The defense looks solid, providing stability at the back, and when it comes down to a crucial moment, Maignan is sure to activate God mode and pull off an unbelievable save. Choosing the coach of the week was difficult, so I'll need your help in the comments. There are 2 candidates. The first is Ruben Amorim, who in the Champions League dominated the tactical battle against Guardiola, securing a comprehensive victory. In the league, he led Sporting to a remarkable comeback win against Braga, despite being 2 goals down at halftime. The second candidate is Arne Slot, who secured 2 wins in tough games. First, the Dutch coach outsmarted Bayer Leverkusen with a formation that lacked a classical forward and went on to dominate the second half. Then he defeated Aston Villa with explosive counterattacks reminiscent of Klopp's best days at Liverpool. Make your choice in the comments. In Turkey, Jose Mourinho was banned for 1 game. After the victory over Trabzonspor, Jose criticized the referee for 2 penalties against his team Fenerbahce. He also hinted at his departure, saying that he was angry at the people who brought him to Turkey. According to rumors, Mourinho could leave as early as January, heading to Newcastle. Would you guys like to see the special one come back to the Premier League? Tell me in the comments. But in third place is Neymar's new injury. Just recently, we were excited about the Brazilian's return after recovering from anterior cruciate ligament tear. And now, he's out again. In the Asian Champions League game against Iranian Esteghlal, Ney was subbed in the second half, but was subbed out after 29 minutes on the field with a hamstring injury. Frustrated, Neymar even threw his boots while sitting on the bench. And a few days later, he learned from doctors that he might not play again this year. He's expected to come back in 4 to 6 weeks. Moreover, there is a possibility that this was the last game for the Brazilian for Al Hilal. It's said that the club is going to terminate the contract with him in January. Apparently, the Sheikhs are tired of spending huge amounts of money on a perpetually injured player. His salary, let me remind you, is around 100 million euros per year. But after the transfer in August 2023, Neymar has only played 7 games for Al Hilal, which means that each of his 7 games cost the club 17 million euros, and each minute on the field 280,000. Crazy and unjustified spending. But what will happen to Neymar next? There are supposedly 2 options. His youth team Santos, which could need his help now because the club plays in Brazilian Serie B, and Inter Miami, where Ney's friends Messi and Suarez play. Neymar has even bought land on the coast in Miami. Who knows, maybe we will see a reunion of the legendary MSN trio. Let's wish the Brazilian a speedy recovery, but the whole situation with his injuries gets minus 100 million a year. Real Madrid's nightmare is in second place. After Vinicius didn't receive the Ballon d'Or and Los Blancos lost in El Clasico, Real Madrid's bad streak continued. Last Tuesday in the Champions League, the team was thrashed at home by Milan, showing a terrible game in defense and the usual poor implementation in attack. For the first time in 15 years, they lost 2 home games in a row, conceding 3+ goals in each of them. And although Real beat Osasuna in Saturday's game in La Liga, the team received more bad news on that day. 3 Real Madrid players got injured in the first half. Rodrigo, who had just recovered, suffered a thigh muscle injury and is now out for a month. Lucas Vázquez is out for 3 weeks, which means Madrid has no more right-backs. But the worst thing is that Eder Militao ruptured his anterior cruciate ligament again. The Brazilian missed almost all of last season after tearing it in his left knee, and now his right knee has suffered too. It looks like the end of a top career. It seems that Real Madrid has been cursed in regard to anterior cruciate ligaments. Over the past 15 months, 10 players have ruptured them in all Real teams, including the youth and women's teams. It's just brutal. Now Real Madrid only have a few healthy defenders left, so the club will definitely enter the market in January. They write about negotiations with Laporte and Trent, and such experts as Goody advise paying attention to free agent Sergio Ramos, who in a difficult situation will help both on the field and in the locker room, even though the player has a tense relationship with President Perez. We wish health and strength to all those injured, but for now, minus anterior cruciate ligaments for all of Real Madrid. And in first place is the historical crisis of Manchester City, another top club that is going through a storm this fall. In the Champions League, Pep's boys were crushed by Sporting with a score of 4-1, and it is important to note that Guardiola's team's loss was well-deserved. Amorim outplayed him tactically using smart pressing traps and a change of formation at halftime. And in the Premier League, the citizens were beaten by Brighton, and here too, the result is based on Man City's poor playing. The Seagulls had better XG and were especially good in the second half when they came back from being behind. For the first time since May 2021, City lost a game after they were leading at halftime. The gap behind the leaders Liverpool is already 5 points. And in all tournaments, Manchester City has suffered 4 defeats in a row, and this is the club's worst streak under the Sheikhs. And also, this is Pep's personal anti-record in his career, considering losses during actual game time, excluding penalty shootout. Of course, it must be said that the results are greatly affected by problems with the squad. The week before last, Guardiola complained that he only had 13 outfield players. The super important Rodri is missing. Debutant Simpson Pusey has to play as center back, and Rico Lewis has to take the role of the left back, even though that's not his position. But on the other hand, even with these problems, there are still many top players in the squad. For the terrible results, Guardiola and his players get a minus or a plus. Bold fraud. And now let's discuss positive things. Mid-25-year-old Georgi Chakveradze, who has been playing for Watford for the second year in a row. He moved to England from Genk, and if during the first season he was mostly adapting to British football, in the second one he has completely settled in and is now cooking. Playing as an attacking midfielder, he creates chances for his teammates, executes set pieces, and constantly tries to dribble. Chakveradze is currently first in the championship in penetrating passes, pre-shot action, and advancing dribbles. Incidentally, he was the MVP in the game against Oxford United this week. Former Manchester United player and his current coach, Tom Cleverley, is especially admired by Georgi. I have seen many top football players in my career, but I have never seen a football player who could so easily dribble the ball and pass it to his teammates. He has a high football IQ. Indeed, it means a lot when somebody who played with Rooney, Van Persie, Nani, and other top players compliments you in such a way. It is said that Gyorgy may get promoted and end up in the Premier League as early as January. The Georgian international is Wolverhampton's main target for the next transfer window. Start keeping an eye on the guy, I'm telling you, he's really good. And from us to Chakvedadze plus Premier League. And of course, we need to discuss Atalanta's shape in Serie A. This season, the team from Bergamo are turning into one of the strongest teams in Europe. In the summer, they had an average transfer campaign. The leader of their midfield, Kopp Mainers, left, and the team didn't find an equivalent replacement for him. They also replaced their main forward Scamacca, who dropped out because of, guess, ACL, with young forward Matteo Retegui from Genoa. As a result, Atalanta started the season badly, 4 defeats in the first 8 games in all tournaments. However, Gasperini gradually integrated the newcomers into his playing system, made the adjustments to the game, and off we go. 8 wins and 1 draw in the last 9 games, and a huge goal difference of 25-3 in this period. In the Champions League, the team has 0 defeats and 0 goals conceded. During the week, they beat strong Stuttgart, which had previously caused problems for Real Madrid and Juventus. And in Italy, they recently interrupted Napoli's 10-game unbeaten streak and are now the second in the standings, being behind from the Neapolitans by just 1 point. The aforementioned Retegui is now the league's top scorer. Lookman is finding the consistency he lacked. Central midfielder Ederson is a delight to watch, and De Ketelaere is playing like one of Serie A's best playmakers. Atalanta play even more spectacularly than before. Compared to last season, they have more possession, make shots more often, and attack more vertically. No surprise that Conte says that Atalanta serves as a benchmark for his Napoli. Gasperini for confirming his top coach status, plus another possible trophy at the end of the season. Quite possible. In the list of the worst performances among goalkeepers, we must highlight the failure of Kevin Müller from Heidenheim. The goalkeeper simply ruined the game against Wolfsburg. His costly mistakes led to the first 2 goals conceded. Then, when his team had pulled one back, Kevin was caught off guard in a one-on-one situation with the opponent's forward and allowed the ball to slip through his legs, completely burying any hopes for a comeback. In defense, Tyrone Mings from Aston Villa receives criticism for a ridiculous mistake in the game against Club Brugge. The Englishman carelessly gave away a penalty under bizarre circumstances. He mistakenly thought the game hadn't started yet and took the ball in his hands inside the penalty area to place it on the line for the goalkeeper. The result? A penalty was awarded and the ensuing goal led to Villa's first point drop in the Champions League. An epic fail. In midfield, Emre Can stood out for all the wrong reasons. In the game against Mainz, he received a red card in the 27th minute for a reckless tackle with straight legs on an opponent. At that point, the score was still 0-0, but with Dortmund down to 10 men, they inevitably crumbled and lost 3-1. In attack, Erling Haaland was the biggest disappointment. In the game against Sporting, he failed to make an impact on the game. He missed a penalty hitting the crossbar and squandered 2 clear goal-scoring opportunities. Over his last 3 games, the Norwegian has scored only once, so he's clearly struggling, much like the rest of his team. That's all for today. Hit that like button and leave a comment below to make our day. And don't forget to check out the other videos on the channel. See you in 2 weeks. Bye!